In this video we are going to take a closer look at the January Deathwatch tournament results, focusing on the continued appearances of the new Army of Renown, the Kill Team Strike Force. The tournaments covered are the New Year's Knockout GT 2022, Twisted Warp, the Nottingham GT with almost 300 players, Uprising Adelaide Australian ITC Championships, and then of course the big Las Vegas Open that took place the last weekend of January. Over the course of the video we will go through all the relevant results and lists, discuss whether these will still be playable after the chapter approved 2022 changes, and attempt to find out how competitive Deathwatch still is these days. For the final part, I will offer my personal conclusions and a quick wrap up.
Welcome to Swiss Hammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Temmer and I will be guiding you through this video.
Before we dive right into the tournaments, it is worth mentioning that these January results mark yet another milestone in 9th edition, with the fresh release of the chapter approved 2022 and both its mission and points changes, as well as several new codex releases. These January results are a last opportunity to look at a meta that is about to significantly change. Space Marines in general have been struggling these past months, and while Deathwatch was able to hold their ground with mainly two competitive builds, Dreadnought Spam and the new Army of Renown, there was a clear absence of opportunity picks by meta chasers, as could be seen back when Dreadnoughts became a thing. If anything, the mentioned points changes have made the situation worse for Dreadnoughts from here on, while leaving the Army of Renown largely intact. While I'm very curious to see where we will be going in the months to come, this release is one last look at the good old Dreadnoughts vs Army of Renown meta with the old rules. With this little introduction out of the way, let's have a look at the latest January tournament results, starting with the New Year's Knockout GT 2022, featuring 36 players over 5 rounds. As the only Deathwatch player present at the event, Geoffrey Husser managed to score an amazing rank 4, going 4-1. His matchups were as following: Space Wolves, Thousand Suns, Double Drukhari and Black Templars, with the last game being his only loss, played against the tournament winner. As far as his list goes, there are several things that stand out, but what I couldn't help notice immediately is that it is almost exclusively firstborn, with the sole exception being the Primaris Techmarine. So much for firstborns being dead. For HQs, he brought the Chaplain with Jump Pack, upgraded to the Master of Sanctity, carrying the Tomb. He then also had the mentioned Primaris Techmarine with Nowhere to Hide and the Worken, as well as a Watchmaster with the Paragon of their chapter Ultramarines and the Osseous Key. That's the anti-vehicle Relic. We certainly did not see that one often so far. For troops, he then has 3 Proteus kill teams, basically vets and van vets with close combat loadouts. For elites, he has 2 minimum sized squads of company veterans, always a great pick, at least with the old rules, and then 3 Relic Contemptors with twin Volkites and Cyclone missile launchers. Last but not least, he brought 2 Razorbacks with twin las cannons. Old school, as I said. I think what's worth mentioning here regarding chapter approved 2022 is that this list will go up by 60 points due to the Relic Contemptors, and the company veterans at minimum size will be less useful due to the changes to secondaries. Still, for people looking to build an exclusively firstborn style of list, this is something to take inspiration from, though personally I expect this to be significantly less competitive in the upcoming meta. Moving on to the second tournament, the Twisted Warp, featuring 82 players over 6 rounds. On rank 15, we have Reid going 3-2-1, battling Blood Angels, Custodies, Sisters of Battle, Death Guard, Grey Knights and Iron Hands, with that last game being his only loss. He brought the fairly standard Dreadnought list with 3 Redemptors, 3 Relic Contemptors, out of which 2 had the Volkites and the third had the heavy plasma cannons, and several Proteus kill teams. This list will now be up by 70 points, in which case I think he would most likely have to drop one of the Dreadnoughts, seeing that the Proteus kill teams were pretty basic as it is. Further down the ranks, we have Waddock on 27, going 3-1-2, and Tristan Whitehead on 55, going 2-4, with both of them playing the Army of Renown. For HQs, Joe brought along the captain on bike with the Dominus Sieges and the ever popular Primaris Chaplain on bike. For troops, he then had a Fortis kill team with Assault Hellblasters, an Indomitor kill team with Boltstorm Aggressors, and 3 Proteus kill teams with the Black Shield, Terminators, and the Sergeant, all rocking some Hammer variants, as well as Deathwatch veterans and the Vanvet and the Biker each. These kill teams are done very much in the style of what we have seen being played by Michael Costello before. Lastly, he then brought the Judiciary with the armor Indomitus. I think this is a powerful list overall, and the 10 points increase of the Chaplain on bike can be compensated for by dropping some of the Proteus war gear. Tristan went a bit of a different route, with the Chaplain and the Librarian for HQs. Then for troops, he had the minimalistic Fortis kill team with just 5 Intercessors and the Aquila Specialism. What I would argue here is that the omnipotent Aquila Specialism is wasted on just these 5 guys due to its interaction with Specialism Extremis. It would have been better to take it on one of the other kill teams. As far as these go, he had 3 Proteus kill teams with Cyclone Missile Launcher Terminators mixed in, and then also a Spectre's kill team with 5 Sniper Eliminators. Furthermore, he brought the Primaris Apothecary with Selfless Healer and the Tomb, as well as a Corvus Blackstar. All of these lists are linked in the description for closer inspection. Moving on to the third tournament, the Nottingham GT, a pretty big one with almost 300 players, going over 5 rounds. As you guys have no doubt heard by now, Michael Costello struck again and went undefeated with Deathwatch, ending up on rank 7, which is absolutely amazing. His matchups were Drukhari, White Scars, Blood Angels, Drukhari again and Custodes. What I like in particular though are the changes he made to his list. For HQs, he still got the Captain and the Chaplain on bikes, but he now also added a Librarian with the Xenopurge Discipline, bringing along Primorphic Resonance and fortified with Contempt. As I covered in an earlier video, the FAQ to the Army of Renown restricted the usage of the unique stratagem, enabling Warlord traits on Sergeant models, meaning that he could no longer get the Blood Angels fight first, as he did prior to that nerf. The Primaris Librarian is an answer to that. He also exchanged the Fortis kill team with Assault Hellblasters he used to have for an Indomitor with Boltstorm Aggressors and a single Bolter Inceptor. There he put the Aquila Specialism, that's a lot of shots and absolutely brutal with the Specialism Extremis stratagem. The rest are then 4 Proteus kill teams, pretty standard Michael Costello style loadouts, as we've seen from him before. Well worth giving a look. All that really changes here is a 10 points increase of the Biker Chaplain, but again, this can be compensated for by changing some of the Proteus kill team war gear around. Link to the list in the description. But that's not all. We then have the very same Matt Reid from the previously covered tournament again, with his 6 Dreadnought list, which is pretty much the same as before, apart from some minor war gear changes on the Proteus kill teams. He went 4-1, facing another Deathwatch player in round 1. This one had the Army of Renown. Round 2 was against Archangels. Round 3 against the Clowns, his only loss. Then round 4 against Raven Guard and round 5 against Orcs. Then on rank 53, going 3-1-1, we have Jim Maynard, and as regular viewers might remember, we already saw him at the Leicester City GT back in December. His matchups were Chaos Space Marines, Ultramarines, Thousand Suns, Orcs and Necrons, with the only loss being that third game against Thousand Suns. Since Leicester, he has made several changes to his list. For HQs, he still runs the Biker Captain and Chaplain, though the Biker Captain now has the Artificial Bolt Cache Relic and the Paragon of their chapter Ultramarines Warlord trait for CP Regen. For troops, he kept the Fortis KT with Assault Hellblasters and the Indomitor with Boltstorm Aggressors and the single bolter Inceptor largely unchanged, but he now has 3 Proteus kill teams instead of just 2. The loadouts in 2 of them are similar to those run by Michael Costello, and in the third he has 3 Cyclone missile launcher Terminators. In order to get the 3 Proteus kill teams going, he dropped the Spectres and the Apothecary he had in his previous iteration. Overall, I think this is a potent list indeed, and once more great job on such a large event. The rest of the Deathwatch players then ended up further down the ranks. We have again Joe Waddock with the near same list as he ran at the Twisted Warp tournament. This time he ended up on rank 121, going 3-2. As I said earlier, this is also a potent list very similar to that of Jim Maynard. What he changed for this tournament was the addition of the Oathkeeper Warlord trait for the Judiciary, increasing his ability to heroically intervene, which I think synergizes very well. On rank 215, we then have Nick Counsell, playing also the Army of Renown with mostly Proteus kill teams and the Spectres one. On rank 236, Philip Roebuck also played the Army of Renown with a Fortis kill team with Assault Hellblasters, an Indomitor one with Eradicators, 3 Proteus kill teams and a company champion, which I think is always a great addition. He was the one losing round 1 to Matt Reid and his Dreadnoughts, for those who were wondering. Just one behind on rank 237, we then have David Cook with a pretty original list featuring a Fortis kill team with Outriders, an Indomitor kill team with Eradicators, a basic Proteus kill team with Vets, double Leviathan Dreadnoughts, a Relic Contempter and a Corvus Blackstar. Moving on to the 4th tournament, the Uprising Adelaide, featuring 126 players over 8 rounds. Crazy Australians. On rank 18, going 5-1-2, we have Dineeth Liyanagama, who we have seen doing well with Deathwatch plenty of times by now. He faced Black Templars, Crusher Stampede, Chaos Knights, Craft Worlds, Drukhari, Tyranids and Double Death Guard. His losses were around 5 and 6 against Drukhari and Tyranids. For his list, he did not play the Army of Renown. Shame on you, Dineeth. Kidding, of course. Instead, I have to say he brought what I would consider a pretty well-rounded list. For HQs, he had a Lieutenant in Reaver armor with the Lord of Deceit Warlord trait, the Indomitus Captain with the Dominus Sieges, and the Primaris Techmarine with the Worken. For troops, we then have 2 Proteus kill teams with shotgun Vets and the by now almost old school biker and van vet combo, as well as a minimalistic Spectres kill team with basically 5 infiltrators, one of which has the Helix Gauntlet. The cool thing is that he can redeploy them as well as the Lieutenant, thanks to Lord of Deceit, giving him some extra flexibility. For elites, he has a squad of Assault Centurions, always nice to see, a Judiciary loaded with Imperium Sword, Mastercrafted Weapon and Oathkeeper, as well as 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts. Then for heavy support, he has a squad of Eliminators, great utility, and of course the 3rd Phobos unit that he can redeploy, as well as a Whirlwind Scorpion. Always great to have some indirect fire, though this one did not get the Whirlwind keyword, therefore cannot use the Fight Last stratagem, so careful with that. In this list, the 3 Redemptors will go up by 30 points in total, which might be difficult to compensate for, given that his kill teams are already very minimalistic. I have no doubts that he will surprise us with another creative list in the near future though. Moving on to the 5th and final tournament, the Frontline Gaming LVO 40k Champs 2022, an absolutely huge event with 766 players, which took place the last weekend of January. Out of all these, 13 played Deathwatch, which is roughly 1.7%, which is more or less what you can expect from Deathwatch attendance. What's pretty cool though is that Spectre195 on the competitive Reddit compiled all the tournament data and presented faction win rates among other things, which puts Deathwatch on rank 11 together with Iron Hands and Harlequins at 49% win rate, making both Deathwatch and Iron Hands the best placed Space Marines in terms of win rate. This is pretty much in line with what we have seen in previous tournament results, where basically Iron Hands were on the rise again, and Deathwatch a few months ago not uncommonly placed as top Marines. I placed a link to the thread in the description for those interested in more numbers. Due to the sheer amount of Deathwatch players, I will focus on the top 3, which all went 4-2, which I think is very respectable for such a big tournament. First, we have Jason Lenore on rank 119, going 4-2 as mentioned, facing Death Guard, Admech, Imperial Knights, Drukhari, Iron Hands and Custodes. His losses were against Admech and Iron Hands. For his list, he ran the Army of Renown with a Librarian in Phobos armor, with the Xenopurge Discipline, the Paragon of their chapter Ultramarines Warlord trait, as well as Stealth Adept. For powers, he brought the standard picks, Primorphic Resonance and Fortified with Contempt. He then also had a Primaris Chaplain on bike with the Beacon and Chalice. What's interesting here is that he had neither Captain nor Watchmaster of any sorts. For troops, he then went with a setup that should be quite familiar by now. Fortis KT with Assault Hellblasters, Indomitor KT with Boltstorm Aggressors and Bolter Inceptors, 3-2 in this one, then 3 Proteus KTs in line with what we have seen from Michael Costello. Of special note is the Artificer armor on one of the Sergeants. To round things up, he has a Judiciary with the armor Indomitus. Overall, great list with great results. On rank 163, we have Fred Fortman, a name regular viewers are no doubt familiar with by now. Just as a side note, he ran the same list as he brought to the Glass City GT earlier in January. There he only played 2 games, won both for what it's worth, but I decided to skip that tournament simply because I thought that 2 games is not really representative and we can review his performance at the LVO instead. Anyway, his matchups were Black Templars, Drukhari, Emperor's Children, Drukhari, Orcs and Drukhari again. His 2 losses were against Emperor's Children and Drukhari. Looking at his list, he went with the Army of Renown, picking a good old Xenophage Captain and the Primaris Chaplain on bike with the Beacon and Chalice for HQs. For troops, he then brought 2 Indomitor kill teams with Boltstorm Aggressors and Aquila Specialism, again absolutely brutal with Specialism Extremis, and also 2 Proteus kill teams in the style of Michael Costello, and the Spectres kill team with Sniper Rifles as the 5th. Lastly, a company champion with the Dominus Sieges and the Paragon of their chapter Ultramarines Warlord trait, a cheap and excellent option for our favorite Relic, while enabling his Slash Captain to do what he does best. On rank 172, we then have Matthew Kulak, who had a bit of a bad start with 2 losses against Custodes and Death Guard, but then won the remaining games against Dark Angels, Thousand Suns, Space Wolves and, drumroll, Deathwatch, piloted by none less than Lou Rollins, who also brought the Army of Renown. What a showdown! Looking at Matthew's list, he brought the Primaris Chaplain on bike with the Beacon and the Watchmaster loaded with the Tomb, Xeno Spain and Paragon of their chapter Ultramarines Warlord trait for HQs. For troops, he then had an Indomitor with Boltstorm Aggressors and the Aquila Specialism. This one is really becoming a classic by now. 3 Proteus kill teams with a variety of Wets, Terminators and Van Wets, as well as a Spectres kill team with Sniper Eliminators. Just to give a quick comparison, Lou Rollins went with 3 Proteus kill teams with mostly Vets, Van Vets and Bikers, a Spectres kill team with Sniper Eliminators, a minimalistic Fortis kill team with basically Intercessors, a Judiciary, a Corvus Blackstar and an Impulsor. That game was super close with 60 to 56, so could have gone either way really. All in all, the Army of Renown is now clearly dominating the competitive Deathwatch scene, with Dreadnought heavy lists slowly fading out. The points increases to its 2 most popular Dreadnoughts are certainly not going to help with that. On the contrary, I expect even more players to embrace the Army of Renown, at least for as long as we don't get any major updates to either Space Marine Techmarines and or Deathwatch. The 10 points increase on the Chaplain on bike, a staple of most competitive lists, can be mitigated, especially when the main bulk are often Proteus kill teams, where it is pretty easy to swap around some war gear. Furthermore, we are seeing the return of the Indomitor kill team, mostly with Boltstorm aggressors, though I personally like the idea of having 4 Boltstorm aggressors and the single Inceptor, which we have for instance seen Michael Costello and Jim Maynard put to good use. This one greatly benefits from the Aquila Specialism and the Specialism Extremist Stratagem combo. We have also seen good results with the Fortis kill team and Assault Hellblasters. I suppose this one largely depends on how many Proteus kill teams you want and or whether you want to give the Spectres kill team with Eliminators a shot or not. Then perhaps my favorite change is the inclusion of the Librarian in Michael Costello's list. I get that it's tempting to go for that aboard the Witch secondary, but personally I always felt that the Xenopurge discipline is such a great utility, and now that the first Warzone Octarius FAQ greatly limited access to fight first in our Army of Renown, it feels like a shame to skip on the Librarian. If a superb player like Michael Costello takes the Librarian back in, I'm sure more will follow as they take inspiration from his latest list iterations. Overall, the best results have been achieved by the combination of 5 kill teams, supported by whatever you can still squeeze in terms of characters, and of course keeping the CP high for getting the most out of Specialism Extremis. Personally, I'm still waiting for someone to crack an event with 4 kill teams, a bunch of characters and the Corvus Blackstar combo instead. I've been going back to the drawing board now with the new missions and secondaries myself, and will of course be very curious to see what will follow over the next few months. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have looked at Deathwatch January tournament results, including the New Year's Knockout GT 2022, Twisted War, the Nottingham GT, Uprising Adelaide, and then of course the big Las Vegas Open that took place the last weekend of January. What stands out here is of course the Army of Renown taking the throne within the Deathwatch meta, with by now a variety of viable lists that have proven to work well. While the overall style is often inspired by what Michael Costello originally came up with, it is great to see that the Indomitor kill team with an aggressor Inceptor combo has made it back into many lists, and even Michael now has one in his latest iteration. It certainly seemed to have worked out for him, going undefeated at the Nottingham GT and ending up on rank 7. Further good news for the Kill Team Strike Force is also that the chapter approved 2022 points changes have little impact on it. It basically boils down to the extra 10 points for the Primaris Chaplain on bike, which has been used in most lists so far. On the other hand, Dreadnought heavy lists have been hit hard by these points changes, and I think we will see them slowly fade out over the next few months, unless something major is going to change in their favor again. Overall, great to see that Deathwatch can still compete, and when judging by large events like the LVO, they are up there as top marines together with Iron Hands, for whatever it's worth in the current meta. That is not all that kind to Space Marines overall. So that's it for the Deathwatch January tournament results and the continued appearances of the new Army of Renown. What do you guys think about these particular lists? And do you think that the Kill Team Strike Force has the potential to win any tournaments in 2022? Any changes you will be doing to your own lists based on these latest tournaments and the freshly released chapter approved 2022? Let me know in the comments. Finally, I would also like to mention that there is a Swiss Hammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. I do also have a Patreon page. If you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated as it helps me invest into future videos. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.